Hi, I'm Parneen Jaggi, and this is going to be a brief analysis of the story Some Words with a Mummy, written by the famous story writer Edgar Allan Poe. Some Words with a Mummy is actually a satire, a satirical short story that was first published in the American Review, a Whig journal of politics, literature, art, and science, in April 1845. Now, the story is regarded as depicting the earliest known representation of a revived Egyptian mummy. Now, let's talk about its significance. Why is this story significant even now, as it is taught in our textbooks in class? It holds certain significance for featuring the earliest known image of a revived Egyptian mummy. And in an 1852 anthology of Poe's works published in the UK, an illustration depicted a revived mummy. So Edgar Allan Poe and the illustrator challenged the accepted racial stereotypes in European imperialism. Now, Poe's tale, Some Words with a Mummy, that came out in 1845, provides one of the most revealing views about the low value he places in the 19th century science. Although the unnamed narrator of this short story, who also speaks in the voice of Mr. Poe, does not go anywhere special, he imagines that an ancient Egyptian mummy is revived by an electrovoltaic shock to reflect on the relative values of ancient and 19th century technologies and is brought to his house in New York. Now, actually, this literary device allows the mummy to provide a view because this mummy comes alive after the electric shock. When it comes alive, it sits up and speaks to the team of doctors. So, this device allows this mummy to give a viewpoint of the 19th century science that was significantly different from the one that was widely understood by the professional scientists. And we have here an observation by Mabbott, who notes that the public at that time was fascinated with modern Egyptology because the 1799 discovery of the Rosetta Stone revealed much previously unknown information about Egyptian civilizations, and several major museums in Poe's lifetime offered exhibits of Egyptian artifacts and even entombed mummies. Now, in this story, the narrator invites 19th century gentlemen friends to his house to unwrap and examine a mummy, or even he goes to the doctor's house to unwrap the mummy that they have borrowed from the directors of the City Museum in New York. So they invigorate this mummy, who is actually Count alla Mistacchio with a voltaic shock. Now, this name is also special. In fact, the name is satiric because the moment this count gets up, he sits on the table, he begins to count many of the mistakes of 19th century science. And as soon as he wakes up, the gentlemen start boasting about the 19th century advances in phrenology and transportation and metaphysics and steam engines and mesmerism, etc. Now, after listening to their claims, the mummy is not convinced. It is unconvinced that there has not been much scientific advancement in the 19th century when compared to the innovations of Egyptian civilizations. Now, because this mummy belongs to the Egyptian civilization, so he informs these gentlemen that ancient Egyptians lived for thousands of years and could even exist in a state of hibernation for as long as they wished. And it is evident that he has accepted the idea of being awoken and even discoursing with them, discussing things with them. So he boasts that his civilization practiced an extremely advanced system of phrenology. He even suggests that these gentlemen should look at the Egyptian architecture and notice that it is far, far superior to the best examples of the present 19th century. The 19th century railroads, he for example adds that they are rather ill conceived in comparison to the grooved causeways built by the Egyptians. Now, further the count, we see that he argues that the Egyptians determined that what the 19th century gentleman referred to as progress was quite a nuisance actually. He discounts the high value placed by the scientists regarding the developments of the 19th century and the Western civilization. So now we notice that in his criticisms, he is actually suggesting that culture and quality of life are more important than the scientific progress when attempting to determine whether a particular civilization is advanced or more advanced or less advanced. Now it is ironic that the only triumph of the 19th century that the mummy concedes to the gentleman is its development of blood purifying laxatives and cough lozenges. So it is only in the stream in the field of medicines that he agrees to have lost. This humorous observation of the sole progress obtained in his lifetime actually shows that Edgar Allan Poe lacked faith that science could cure the ailments of humanity, and that he wanted to get as far away from the assumptions of the 19th century as he could imagine. The narrator is profoundly congested by the mummy's revelations, commenting, quotation, "The truth is, I am heartily sick of this life and the 19th century in general. I'm convinced that everything is going wrong," unquote. He despairs that he would like to get embalmed for a couple of 100 years. So this is where the story ends. How that the discussions, the discourses, and the revelations of this Count Alamistechio affects the narrator so much that he starts wishing that he could also hibernate for 2000 years and wake up once somewhere later on in the years to enjoy the glorious future that he had imagined. So we can only wonder if Poe would have even been more dismayed about the progress of 21st century science if he woke up today. So this is in general a discussion of Egyptian ancient culture with the doctors saying about 19th century. But now since we are in the 21st century, we can imagine what Edgar Allan Poe must have felt about 19th century when he is showing in the story that the narrator is losing to Alamistechio, and the narrator wants to have a life like that of the mummy. He wants to be embalmed in the end of the story so that he can go into hibernation and later wake up somewhere in the coming future. So this was a brief analysis of the story, the interesting story, Some Words with a Mummy. Stay tuned. Thank you for now.